should we, if you don't have anything else, then Massam, to set us off with a bit of a foundation, I can jump into the Fritzl case.
Yeah,
I like
sure.
that though, Massa. There was some sick questions. I like that.
Yeah,
Thanks.
100%.
That's it.
So I'm sure a lot of you are familiar with the Fritzl case, but I'll do like a quick 60 seconds on it. It's really long, and we could do an entire bite entirely on that, which we might start a little series where we deep dive in some of these cases. We've talked about it for a long time, so let us know if you do want to see that. But long story, incredibly long story short, Josef Fritzl, Austrian man, he was married to his wife Rosemary, I believe her name was, and they had a daughter. A daughter was called Elizabeth. At age 11, he began sexually abusing her and assaulting her, and that was like 1977. Fritzl's mother, also apparently, this came out after, he actually locked her up in his attic and basically starved her out and essentially killed her as well. There was abuse from her. She never showed him love growing up, etc., etc., which again is something we'll come into because I think that's a very common theme of abuse in childhood in different forms.
Yeah,
Joseph
it is.
Fritzl, big time. Joseph
Big
Fritzl
time.
then essentially converted his basement, his cellar, into a prison cell. When Elizabeth, his daughter, was 18, he lured her into there, he imprisoned her, sexually assaulted her over many, many, many years, gave birth to many children. I think it says here 14 children he had, I think, with her. Some of those died, some of those lived. He essentially got some of those children born from his relations with his daughter, and basically popped them on his doorstep to act as if they were given to him, because the whole idea was that Elizabeth, his daughter, had ran away because she didn't want to live there anymore and she was trying to get her own freedom, but she had kids outside and then she sent them to that home to look after while she was away in a different country. So that was the guise he gave, because not even his wife Rosemary knew that they were locked in the cellar. Nobody was allowed to go down there, nobody was allowed to enter there, basically. And then 20 plus years he assaulted her, Elizabeth, his daughter, and then eventually one of the kids had to be taken to hospital. He took them to hospital. Elizabeth was like, I really need to go, I'm ill, blah blah blah, etc., etc. And then they went there, and then eventually, from there, when they were both in the hospital, the doctor tipped them off, and they were able to fortunately be rescued. There is so much more to it. It's so gruesome, and we'll
Yeah.
go into it a little bit, but there really is so much.
I was gonna say, correct me if I'm wrong, but I thought after the daughter the daughter who needs to go hospital had like some sort of liver failure. He took the daughter. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I thought this was the case. He took the daughter to the hospital. Then the cops and the police were like, "How do you have this kid?" And he was like, "Oh, Elizabeth, blah blah blah. Elizabeth gave it. Elizabeth told me this person's got this problem. This daughter's got this problem." And they're like, "That's sus." And then he decided to come back with Elizabeth, right, as proof.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Something
Kind
like
of.
that.
She was like, she really wanted to go to like basically prove that she was there, and he was like, "Well, I don't really have a choice at this point," because they kept interrogating him.
yeah, so that's the
He was using
funniest
these
thing of this
notes
whole
to
story.
back himself up for like 10, 15 years at this point. It's like, brother, no one believes you. But
Well, they
Yeah.
kind of believed him at first
yeah,
because they thought Elizabeth was a neglectful mother, so they were kind of half believing it until she went to the hospital, and then she had the same symptoms as her daughter.
Yeah.
Then they were like, "Okay, that's kind of sus."
Yeah, but that basically what I'm trying to say with that is like it's kind of almost ironic that like his downfall was his own like sort of hubris. Like as soon as all the pressure started being piled on him, he's like, "Whoa, okay, maybe I need to take extra means." What I don't understand, and I told this story to somebody else recently as well, right? And they said something hilarious because it's so true. Which some of the bits you're leaving out is like he decided to adopt some of the kids with Rosemary. Yeah, so something I was telling the story to somebody and they pointed out something hilarious because I was like, that's a good point actually, which is in this Joseph Fritzl's life, this wasn't the only horrible thing he did. There's a couple other things, right? He got let out because he also raped someone earlier,
a nurse.
midwife,
Yeah.
I think.
Yeah, nurse,
Yeah, a
midwife,
nurse.
something. Yeah.
Yeah, and then he got let out, and so like he's obviously a repeat offender. So the funny thing is like this guy's morals are all over the place because he's perfectly doing those horrific acts, right? And doing the stuff to his, who knows what, he probably abused the wife as well. It's reasonable to assume he probably abused the wife. He locked up the mom, the daughter. But his line, the line where he drew was the little girl's liver damage, which is a kind of weird one, right? It's a weird one. Like
Did he let many die? These kids used to dig up. They literally with their hands, then they did it. They dug up the ground, the soil to extend the cellars. Like he had them working slave labor, as well as malnutrition, feeding them twice a week.
No sunlight. They obviously saw the abhorrent acts, which he rationalized by basically saying he would never look at Elizabeth while doing it. Essentially, so like the kids were there. So like this is what I'm saying. Like this is why I think brings up the whole question of evil, and that's why I wanted to start off with the evil aspect, because even this man, who I would be, this is the kind of individual I'd be afraid to look in the eye, because this is like a living demon sort of thing. This is a living demon on Earth, right? Like even he had the line at the liver damaged kid, which is just one like weird, right?
Some
it's just
sixth
weird
sense of morality.
That's what I'm saying. It's all over the place. And he also had a... Did he not have like a cremation?
He said he wanted a way out. And that was kind of his... He was already planning to let her out.
That's
oh, yeah, cheers.
Let's do
2 decades later.
Yeah, that's cap.
Cheers, mate.
Yeah, that's cap. 24 years, right?
That's 24 years, yeah. He had written letters and stuff that he had set up for... He was planning to release her a year later. And so he was like slowly making a plan to integrate back a story that would not incriminate him when she comes back into reality, because in his words, he was getting too old to care for his second family, which is the basement. So that's why and then he was like, well, she's ill, so might as well. He did already. One child already died, and then he did cremate the kid in the oven.
Cremation. Yeah, that's exactly what I'm saying. So like this, it's all over the place. So even this messed up individual had his own definition of morality, which is weird to think, because sometimes you see these evil individuals and you're like, they only think in evil, right? They can only think in, there's no black.
I feel like a lot of them
black,
have that twisted sense of morality, though. Their own version of it.
They all do. Yeah, they all do.
I feel like they all do, yeah.
And
quick question. Sorry, before you carry on. Did you said the wife couldn't go downstairs? No one knew. Like,
I'm going to talk about that. I was going to address that. Yeah.
Okay, so does that mean that the wife didn't know that Elizabeth was downstairs?
I'm glad you said that, because I was literally going to bring that next point.
Okay.
So this is the thing, okay? So reading the story, there's two things which kind of stand out other than all that stuff. One, he even outlived some of the rooms in the house, by the way, if you didn't know that. So there was an individual who used to stay there. Yeah, there was an individual who stayed there for like 11 years, and this person recounts how even he heard like noises. He heard noises, and he just kind of like pushed in the back of his mind and kind of didn't address it. And as messed up as that is to hear, right, part of me does feel bad for that individual, because you must, like, that person, I don't know if it's a guy or girl,
I think
they must be going through crazy guilt as well, right? Because you can imagine.
It was noises, as in like it was.
He could hear it from the walls and stuff like that.
He could hear through the walls
while he was staying in the house.
What was he doing?
He was renting. He rented the. Fritzl rented the room out to him.
There was one tenant. I don't know if it's the same tenant, but there was one tenant that did look around the house, like try and investigate, because they had a dog that kept barking in the middle of the night. So they went to investigate, but they never found the cellar door.
The cellar door, by the way, Harshu was like behind like 6 layers with, and he was an electrical engineer, Josef Fritzl. So he had like keypad locks and door after door, and it was massive and everything like that. And this is the 70s as well for this guy to set up all these contraptions.
It was like 8 doors or something between the first one.
Crazy.
I don't understand if all these noises are happening, why didn't no one just say, like, something's happening? Like, it doesn't sound like a fox dying, bro. It sounds like...
I don't know if this is cap or not, right? But he kept using this excuse that he was building a fallout shelter, right? That's what he always used to say, because this was the height of Russia and America not liking each other. So he was building a fallout shelter, and I guess that was quite common at the time. So there would be like machinery and stuff going on and things happening that you could well, he thought he could just get away with using that as an excuse, and a lot of people just seem to believe him because that's what the times were.
Yeah, this was Cold War times. So so there was that, and then talking about the wife, though, this is the thing about the wife situation.
Rosemary.
Yeah, Rosemary. So like that's a dying name, by the way. I ain't never heard of Rosemary. So the Elizabeth and Rosemary still don't have a good relationship, and I saw that, and that kind of made me sad because you'd think like they would have this shared trauma, and then when people have shared trauma, they normally reconcile and get together, right? Thing is, though, I do feel like I don't know to what extent, but I do feel like the wife is kind of semi complicit because there's different factors involved here. One, which found out way after that apparently he locked his mum, right? So
I
you
couldn't
have a
find out
locked
more
mum thing in the
information
same
about
house.
that. I didn't really
You
get how
couldn't.
that worked. Yeah, I tried looking into it a little bit more. I couldn't really see much. Like, apparently it was something he
she was there
just,
3
I
years
don't know.
after.
Because they moved into the
Yeah.
house together with
Well,
Rosemary, with his wife, and then he locked up his mum up there. I just have no idea how it worked. Like, does his wife not know where his mum is?
that's what I'm saying. The wife was complicit because one, the grandma thing is sus. Two, he was literally a rapist. Fritzl was quite literally previously,
convicted.
right?
Oh,
And then on top of that, literally convicted, and then on top of that, the whole Elizabeth thing, and there's going to be a natural bit of like. Also, you can assume it's 70s, 80s, post-war kind of Soviet war kind of time, probably a submissive woman.
For sure.
Yeah, right. And on top of that, Josef Fritzl, which is he talking about mental trauma, he was like abused by his mum, kind of a single mum situation. He had a dad, but his dad was literally a Nazi. No, he was literally a Nazi.
Was literally a Nazi. Yeah, let's not forget.
His dad was quite literally a Nazi. Yeah,
I was actually reading that.
So,
I was actually reading that he stated that his mum only really had him to kind of prove that she wasn't sterile to his dad. So there was no love there from the beginning. His mum, according to him at least, I wonder if I believe how much he says, but still, nonetheless, he quoted that his mum wasn't very nice. But yeah, there's a lot to say about this thingy, but that should hopefully give enough, background for those who don't know on that.
Do you know how many tenants he had in that period?
I don't want to know.
It was like 110.
Oh,
what, bro?
days.
Someone had to know. How big's this yard? Someone has to know.
It's the same room, bro. It's just letting out the same room for over like 20 years, right?
But surely, like 100,
He got
like,
off on
a woman in the attic, a woman downstairs, bro. Someone's got to know something somewhere.
Did the mum know that the grandma was living there?
I don't know.
Because she came to the house way later.
That's what I'm saying. 3 years after he started sexually abusing her, Elizabeth, that's when his mom died upstairs, apparently.
Yeah, 100. I'm telling you, we'll never know. I don't know if the mum's even alive, but the mum, Elizabeth's
Rosemary.
I think she is.
Rosemary. Like Rosemary had to be complicit. Like she must have just
not
didn't want to prod the bear. Yeah,
just makes me feel dumb though.
No,
how dumb can you be?
20
years, bro.
20 years.
Yeah, but you might just be she might be scared for her own life.
That's
valid.
That's
true.
No,
she's
100%.
Maybe
that's what I'm saying though.
That's what I'm saying. She's a submissive woman. She probably was aware, but she couldn't do anything because she probably was abused as well. That's what I'm saying. Because realistically, you wouldn't put one and one together when you start like getting the kids, like
connecting
literally Elizabeth's kids, and start like.
I mean, she did tell the police at one point, but nothing happened.
Yeah.
Sanded.
But
I don't know, man. It's
messed up
sickening.
story.
The one thing that just makes my stomach turn, it's like we're all 24, 25, right? She was there for 20 years, right? She stayed every
24, right?
24, yeah. She was there every single day for as long as we've been alive.
I know, right? That's the
that makes my stomach. That actually makes me sick. Like I actually physically feel sick.
Do you know what is like, other than obviously the abuse in the 24 years, the other thing that makes me really sad about the story is like, naturally, someone in this captivity, you'd expect Elizabeth to lose all hope, right? 24 years, you think, obviously, what you're saying, Jay, about him apparently going to let her out, I don't believe that, but we'll just say for happen's sake that was going to be the case, right? if that was going to be the case, she didn't know that, right? So for all Elizabeth knows, she's going to live the rest of her life like that. And you'd think in those normal situations, Stockholm syndrome would naturally set in, right? You'd assume so. You wouldn't be shocked if she went through that. But like literally the first opportunity she got, well, I think second, because he took her out the first time like a week before she saw sunlight, right? I think to like
That's when her
for a
kid went to
gate.
hospital, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That was the first
So
time.
like, but like practically the first time she comes, maybe first or second time she sees outside, she leaps at the opportunity. It wasn't even one of them ones where she just kind of accepts it and gets, because you
The
wouldn't
only
be
reason I say
surprised if she
Stockholm
just
probably
kind of went
doesn't
back in the
work.
shell.
The only reason I would say Stockholm probably doesn't work is because it's probably a dad. But I don't know any other situation, so maybe it is with, because I feel it doesn't like Stockholm kind of
Okay, maybe
so
Stockholm
happen.
is not.
Yeah, I think that's the
Yeah.
wrong definition.
Yeah, maybe
Maybe you mean
Stockholm is.
like, okay, I'm used to it now. It is my
Yeah,
life now. It
she's
is
a
what it is.
recluse.
Yeah.
Yeah, she would just live to accept it. But like
Fair play.
first opportunity, she kind of leapt at it, and it's just like,
Hmm.
damn. Like every day she was praying for opportunity. You can naturally
That's
assume,
terrible,
right?
man.
But yeah,
I know.
so now it kind of begs the question, right? You take that very intimate, just like personal, very deep rooted, whatever the hell you want to call it.
Active
Probably no
evil.
word for it. Yeah, it's probably doesn't even do it. Whatever. But like you take that and then you take someone on the other end of the spectrum, the Stalins, the Hitlers, the whoever's, that have murdered, the Genghis Khans that murders like 11% of the world's population, right? These people like that. What's more evil?